The space station called Helix 7 floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge. Almost 2 million beings lived there. They came from dozens of different planets. They had different bodies, different colors, different ways of thinking, but they all shared one thing. They all believed they were civilized. In one part of the station there was a school. The Galactic Unity Academy was famous across the galaxy. Young beings from many species came there to learn. They studied science, history, and diplomacy. They learned how to work with other species. The academy promised to make them into leaders. Was 17 years old. She had black hair that she kept in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were dark brown. She was not very tall. On her home planet, she was considered average. But here, among the aliens, she stood out for a different reason. She was human. She was the first human to ever attend the academy. Earth had only met alien life 18 months ago. A trading ship had found the small blue planet spinning around its yellow sun. The aliens were shocked by what they found. Earth was a planet that tried to kill everything on it. Earth had burning deserts and frozen wastelands. It had hurricanes, earthquakes, and volcanoes. The air was full of oxygen, which was basically poison to many species. The gravity was crushingly heavy. Dangerous animals lived everywhere. Tiny, invisible creatures called bacteria and viruses caused terrible diseases. And somehow, humans had survived all of this. They had not just survived. They had become the dominant species on their insane planet. The galaxy did not know what to think about humans. Some species were curious. Some were afraid. Most were suspicious. How could anything good come from such a violent world? The Galactic Council decided to test humans. They would send one young human to the academy. If she could prove that humans were civilized, Earth might be allowed to join the council. If she failed, humans would be labeled as dangerous animals. They would be isolated, quarantined, left alone on there forever. No Pressure thought bitterly. She had been at the academy for 3 months now. Every day was hard. The other students stared at her like she was a zoo animal. The teachers spoke slowly when they talked to her like she was stupid. Some students refused to sit near her. They said she smelled like a predator. But the worst was his species came from a small moon with low gravity. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and silver skin. They moved with a grace that looked like dancing. They considered themselves the most elegant species in the galaxy. They had been part of the council for 10,000 years. Hated from the first day. It started small. He would bump into her in the hallways and pretend it was an accident. He would whisper comments when she walked past. Beast, savage. The translator in his ear made sure she understood every word. Then it got worse. One day, and his friends surrounded her in the cafeteria. They made her eat her food on the floor. They said that animals should not sit at tables with civilized beings, thought about fighting back. But she remembered her mission. She had to prove that humans were peaceful. She stayed quiet. She ate on the floor. She pretended not to see the other students laughing. She reported the incident to the academy staff. Nothing happened. Another day destroyed her science project. She had worked on it for 2 weeks. He knocked it off her desk and stomped on it with his long feet. When she complained to the teacher said she must have made a mistake, came from an important family. He would never do such a thing. Filed a formal complaint. Nothing happened. Week after week, the harassment continued, reported everything. She followed all the rules. She did everything right. But nobody helped her. The academy staff did not care about one human student. They were powerful. Humans were nothing. Started to change. She did not become angry. That would be too obvious. Instead, she became quiet, watchful. She started wearing a small camera hidden in her uniform collar. Every insult, every shove, every cruel moment was recorded. She saved the files in 3 different locations. She made copies and sent them to secure servers on Earth. Humans had not survived there by being stupid. They had learned to be patient. They had learned to plan. They had learned that sometimes the best revenge took time. 3 months passed, had hundreds of hours of footage. She had copies of every complaint she had filed. She had proof that the academy staff had ignored her reports. She was building a weapon, and nobody knew. Then came the day that changed everything. Physical coordination class was held in a large room with soft floors. Students from different species practiced moving together. They learned to understand each other's bodies. For most species, this meant gentle exercises and careful movements. Was paired with a group of students, was among them. The instructor was a large being with 6 legs and no eyes. It could sense movement through vibrations in the floor. It was supposed to watch for problems, but it never seemed to notice when caused trouble. Today, the exercise was simple. Students had to pass a ball to each other while moving across the room. Teamwork, coordination, trust. Caught the ball and threw it to the next student. She moved smoothly. 3 months of practice had taught her how to work with alien bodies. She was actually getting good at this. Then stepped in front of her. He was smiling. That silver face twisted into an expression of pure contempt. His 4 arms hung loose at his sides. He was blocking her path. Tried to step around him. He moved to block her again. Around them, the other students had stopped. They were watching, waiting. This had become normal, bullied the human, and everyone watched like it was entertainment. Reached out and slapped the ball from his hands. It bounced across the floor. Still, she did not react. She turned to get the ball. That was when grabbed her data slate from her belt. Every student had one. It held their notes, their assignments, their personal information. Held it up, examining it like it was something disgusting. Stopped walking. She turned around slowly. Her heart was beating hard, not from fear, from something else. Something that had been building for 3 months. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. But inside, something was waking up. Something old. Something that had kept her ancestors alive on a planet that wanted them dead. She held out her hand. Laughed. He tossed the data slate across the room. It slid across the floor and stopped near the wall. Did not move. Leaned closer. His silver face was centimeters from hers. She could smell something like copper and flowers. Breath. He spoke one word. The translator rendered it perfectly. Veg. The room was completely silent. Every student was watching. The instructor stood motionless, pretending not to notice. She looked at her data slate on the floor. She thought about her mission. She thought about Earth. She thought about all the reports she had filed, all the times she had stayed quiet, all the times she had been peaceful and civilized and good. Then she thought about something else. On Earth, humans had a saying, everyone has a limit. Had found hers. She moved faster than could react. Her hand shot out and grabbed his primary arm. She stepped forward, turned her hip, and pulled. It was a simple judo throw. She had learned it when she was 12 years old. Was not ready. His species had evolved in low gravity. They had never needed to fight. They had never needed strong bones or fast reflexes. They had servants and technology and laws to protect them. None of that helped him now. He flew over his shoulder and hit the floor. The sound was loud in the silent room, like a metal drum being struck, but there was another sound too, a cracking sound, wet and sharp. Screamed. Stood over him, breathing hard. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from something else. From satisfaction. Around her, the other students were frozen. The instructor was rushing over. Alarms were starting to sound somewhere in the distance. He was clutching his chest with 3 of his arms. The 4th hung at a strange angle. His silver face was twisted in pain and shock. He had never been hurt before. His species rarely felt physical pain. They had evolved past such primitive experiences. Until now. 3 of his ribs were broken. Could tell from the way he was breathing. Humans knew what broken bones looked like. They broke bones all the time on there. She should have felt guilty. She should have felt afraid. She had just ruined everything. Her mission was over. Earth would be rejected from the Council. Humans would be labeled as dangerous forever. But standing there, looking down at the alien who had tormented her for 3 months, felt something else entirely. She felt like a human. And for the first time since arriving at the academy, she smiled. The office of Principal Coordinator was on the top floor of the academy's main building. Large windows looked out at the stars. The furniture floated on small gravity fields. Everything was designed to show power and importance. Herself sat behind a curved desk made of some dark metal. Her species had run bureaucracies across the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years. They were patient, organized, and completely without emotion. At least that was what they claimed. Had 7 eyes arranged in a circle around her head. Each eye could move independently. Right now, 3 of them were focused on the data screen in front of her. The other 4 were watching. The human sat in a chair designed for much larger beings. Her feet did not reach the floor. She should have looked small and afraid. Instead, she sat with her back straight and her hands folded in her lap. Her face showed nothing. Found this disturbing. Every other student who had sat in that chair had been nervous, scared, begging. This human looked like she was waiting for a bus. The medical report glowed on the screen. 3 broken ribs, 1 dislocated shoulder, severe bruising across the torso. Estimated recovery time, 6 weeks with regeneration therapy. Chromatophores, the color-changing cells in her skin, shifted to a pale blue. It was the equivalent of a frown. She spoke. Her voice was flat. Her translator turned it into perfect human language. You broke 3 of his ribs. Did not react. She simply said one word. Yes. Waited. In her experience, this was when students started making excuses. They blamed others. They cried. They begged for mercy. Did none of these things. She sat in silence, watching with those strange human eyes. 2 eyes only, both facing forward, the eyes of a predator. Felt something she had not felt in decades. A small chill ran through her body. She pushed the feeling away and continued. Is the son of the ambassador to the Galactic Council. His family has been part of galactic civilization for 10,000 years. His grandfather helped write the founding documents of the Unity Accords. Nodded slightly. She already knew this. Everyone knew this. Never let anyone forget it. Continued. The ambassador is furious. He is demanding your immediate expulsion. He wants you sent back to Earth. He wants your planet's application to the Council rejected permanently. He wants humans declared a dangerous species. She paused, watching face for any reaction. There was none. Do you understand what you have done? You have not just hurt one student. You have endangered your entire species. Every human on Earth will suffer because of your actions today. Now moved, she leaned forward slightly. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. Has been harassing me for 3 months. I reported it 11 times. I filed 4 formal complaints. Nothing was done. Nobody helped me. Today he stole my property and told me to fetch it like an animal. I defended myself. Chromatophores shifted to yellow. Annoyance. I have reviewed the records. There are some complaints filed, yes, but they are minor matters. Cultural misunderstandings. Comes from a very different background. He did not understand that his behavior was offensive to humans. His eyes narrowed slightly. Noticed. The human was angry, but she was controlling it. Interesting. He knew exactly what he was doing, said. He called me beast, savage, animal. He made me eat on the floor. He destroyed my work. He did all of this in front of other students. Teachers saw it happen. Nobody stopped him. Waved one of her long arms. The gesture meant dismissal. Regardless of what happened before, violence is never acceptable at this institution. You should have continued to report the problem. You should have been patient. Instead, you attacked a fellow student and caused serious injury. She leaned forward, all 7 eyes focused on now. The penalty for violence is expulsion. You will be sent back to Earth. Your species will be marked as too aggressive for integration. This is the law. Did not look away, she did not cry, she did not beg. Is that the only option? Paused, she had been waiting for this question. The truth was, did not want to expel the human, not because she cared about or Earth. She did not. But expulsion would create problems. There would be investigations, questions. Some people might ask why the harassment reports had been ignored. Some people might ask why herself had told her staff to deprioritize complaints from the human student. That conversation she had with the ambassador 3 months ago, the one where she agreed to make sure the human experiment failed, that conversation could become very awkward if people started asking questions. No, it was better to handle this quietly, contain the damage, move on. There is one alternative, said. She kept her voice neutral. Waited. You will make a public apology. Tomorrow morning in the assembly hall, every student and teacher will be present. The media has already been contacted. This will be broadcast across the galaxy. Called up a document on her screen. She turned it so could see. You will read this statement. You will admit that your species has aggressive tendencies. You will acknowledge that your origins make you prone to violence. You will apologize to personally. You will promise to control your primitive instincts in the future. Read the statement. Her face was still calm, but something changed in her eyes. A small light. Could not identify it. And if I refuse? Allowed herself a small smile. She had one. Then you will be expelled. Earth will be rejected. And every news network in the galaxy will report that humans are violent animals who attacked an innocent student for no reason. The narrative will be set. Your species will never recover. She folded her arms. But if you apologize, if you admit your mistake, then perhaps the galaxy will see that humans can be civilized, that you can recognize when you are wrong, that you can be trained. Trained, the word hung in the air. Stood up, she was short. Her head barely reached shoulder, but somehow standing there in that huge office, she did not look small. She looked dangerous. Not in an obvious way, not like she was about to attack, but there was something in the way she held herself, something in those predator eyes, felt that chill again. I understand, said. Her voice was perfectly calm. You want me to apologize for defending myself against months of abuse. You want me to confirm that humans are animals. You want me to grovel so you can protect your relationship with the... Chromatophores flashed red. How dare you? Held up one hand. The gesture was so confident that actually stopped talking. I will give your apology, said, tomorrow, in front of everyone. Blinked several of her eyes. She had expected more resistance. You will? Yes, smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of something that had claws and teeth and millions of years of survival instinct. I will give the Academy, exactly, the apology it deserves. She turned and walked toward the door. Her footsteps were silent on the floating floor. At the door, she paused and looked back. Thank you for this opportunity, Principal. I think tomorrow will be very educational for everyone. Then she was gone. Sat alone in her office. The stars glittered outside the windows. Somewhere in the station, 3 million beings went about their lives, unaware that anything had changed. But something had changed, could feel it. Something in the way the human had spoken, something in that smile. She should report this. She should increase security. She should cancel the assembly and simply expel the human now before anything else happened. But that would raise questions. That would create problems, and had spent 40 years avoiding problems. No, the human would give her apology. The crisis would pass. Everything would go back to normal. Turned back to her work. She pushed the strange feeling away. She did not feel fear. She did not worry about what one small human might do. That was her mistake. On the other side of the station, in her small dormitory room, sat at her desk. Her fingers moved across her datapad. Files were opening. Recordings were playing. 3 months of evidence was being organized into a single devastating package. She thought about her ancestors, the ones who had survived ice ages and plagues and predators and wars. They had not survived by being the strongest. They had survived by being clever, by planning, by turning their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. The thought they were powerful because they had money and connections and influence. Thought she was safe because she controlled the narrative. They had both forgotten one important thing about. When you corner something that evolved on a planet trying to kill it, that thing does not give up. It does not surrender. It looks for a way out. And if there is no way out, it makes one. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn this lesson. Saved her files and closed her datapad. Then she lay down on her bed and closed her eyes. She slept perfectly, the sleep of someone who had made a decision, the sleep of a predator waiting for dawn. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. The assembly hall of the Galactic Unity Academy was the largest room on Helix 7 station. It could hold 5,000 beings. Today, every seat was filled. They came from dozens of species, tall with silver skin, short with rocky bodies, floating who were made of light and gas, bureaucrats, merchant, warrior. They were all here to see the same thing. The human was going to apologize. News drones floated near the ceiling, small flying machines with cameras and microphones. They broadcast to networks across the entire galaxy. Billions of beings on thousands of planets were watching. This was the biggest story in years. I had attacked a civilized being. Now she would admit her mistake. She would prove that humans were violent animals. She would confirm what everyone already believed. At least that was what everyone expected. Stood backstage. She wore her academy uniform. It was clean and pressed. Her hair was tied back in its usual ponytail. She looked calm, normal, unremarkable. The data chip in her pocket felt heavy. It contained 3 months of footage, every insult, every shove, every cruel moment. It also contained recordings of staff meetings, messages between administrators, a very interesting conversation between principal and the ambassador. It was enough to destroy careers, maybe enough to change history. A staff member approached her, a young with nervous yellow skin. "They are ready for you." Nodded, she walked toward the stage. The assembly hall was arranged like a theater. Rows of seats rose up in curves, all facing a central platform. The platform was floating, suspended by gravity fields. A podium stood in the center, with microphones and holographic projectors. Walked onto the platform. Her footsteps echoed in the silent hall. 5,000 eyes watched her. Millions more watched through the drones. In the front row, she saw, he was wrapped in regeneration mesh. His arm was in a support device. He looked pale and tired. Beside him sat his father, the ambassador. His silver face was arranged in cold satisfaction. Behind them sat Principal. All 7 of her eyes were fixed on. Her skin was neutral gray, confident, sure that her plan was working. Reached the podium. She adjusted the microphone. She pulled out the paper that had given her, the official apology, the confession that humans were violent animals. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she set it aside. "Thank you all for coming today," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. The microphones carried it to every corner of the hall. "I understand you are expecting an apology." She paused. She looked out at the crowd, all those alien faces, all those strange eyes, all of them waiting for her to grovel. "You are going to get one, but not from me." A murmur ran through the crowd. Skin flashed red. The ambassador leaned forward, his silver face twisting. Continued. I have been at this academy for 3 months. During that time, I have tried to follow the rules. I have tried to be a good student. I have tried to represent my species with dignity and respect." She pulled out the data chip. It was small, smaller than her thumb, but it contained enough information to change everything. "I have also been documenting everything that has happened to me." She inserted the chip into the podium's projector. The holographic display activated. A recording began to play. The first image showed in a hallway. He was shoving against a wall. His voice came through the speakers, clear and cruel. "Watch where you walk. This station is for civilized beings." The crowd went silent. The recording changed. Now it showed the cafeteria, and his friends were surrounding. They were pushing her down, making her kneel, making her eat from the floor like an animal. His voice filled the hall. "Animals eat on the ground. Do you not agree, beast?" More recordings, more footage. Science project being destroyed. Insults whispered in corridors. Threats made when no teachers were watching. Then came the reports. Documents appeared on the display. Formal complaints, date and time stamps, details of every incident, and next to each one a note, "No action taken." "I filed 11 complaints," said. Her voice was calm, almost casual. 11 times I reported what was happening. 11 times the academy staff did nothing. The crowd was completely silent now. The news drones had moved closer. Every camera was focused on the display. Stood up, her skin was flashing through colors, red, yellow, purple, anger, fear, panic. "This is highly irregular," she shouted. "You were supposed to." "I was supposed to apologize," interrupted. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. She was the only one in control here, and everyone knew it. "I was supposed to admit that humans are violent, that I attacked an innocent student for no reason, that I am an animal that needs to be controlled." She pressed another button on the podium. "But before I do that, I think the galaxy should hear this." A new recording played, audio only but perfectly clear. Principal's voice: "The human is a test subject. Her comfort is not a priority. If she has problems, tell her to handle them herself. We cannot upset The ambassador's voice: "I am glad we understand each other. My son can be difficult, but he comes from an important family. Allowances must be made." His voice again: "Of course. The human experiment will fail eventually. They always do. These cannot control their nature. Soon enough she will do something violent and we can send her home. Problem solved." The recording ended. The assembly hall exploded into chaos. Beings were shouting, standing up, pointing at the ambassador. The news drones were swooping everywhere, capturing everything. Was trying to speak, but nobody was listening. Her skin had gone completely white, the color of terror. The ambassador was on his feet. His 4 arms were waving. He was screaming something about lies and conspiracy. His son was trying to hide behind him, but there was nowhere to hide. Stood at the podium and waited. Eventually, the noise began to die down. The beings in the hall realized that she was still standing there, still calm, still in control. She spoke again. "I have 847 hours of footage. Every interaction, every insult, every time your staff ignored a report. All of it is now being transmitted to the Galactic Council's Ethics Committee, to the Human Embassy on Station Prime, and to every major news network in the galaxy." She looked directly at. "You wanted me to apologize for defending myself. You wanted me to confirm that humans are animals. You thought I was alone and weak and desperate." Her smile returned, that same smile she had shown in his office, the smile that was not quite human. "You forgot something about Principal. We did not survive our planet by giving up. We survived by fighting, by adapting, by turning our enemies' weapons against them." She picked up the paper with the official apology, the confession that was supposed to destroy humanity's chances. She tore it in half. The pieces floated down to the platform floor. I am not going to apologize for defending myself against abuse. I am not going to pretend that humans are violent because you failed to protect me. I am not going to save your careers by destroying my species. She stepped back from the podium. If anyone deserves to apologize today, it is not me. Then she turned and walked off the stage. Behind her, the chaos continued, was being surrounded by angry staff members. The ambassador was shouting into his communicator, trying to contact his lawyers. Security officers were pushing through the crowd, but did not look back. She walked through the backstage area. She walked down a quiet corridor. She found a small observation room with a window looking out at the stars. She sat down and watched the darkness. Her hands were shaking now. The control she had maintained was cracking. She had just done something crazy, something that could not be taken back. She had challenged the most powerful families in the galaxy. She had exposed a principal and an ambassador. She had become either a hero or a target. Probably both. But she had not lied. She had not groveled. She had not let them make her into something she was not. Whatever happened next, she had faced them as a human, as a survivor as someone who did not break. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and eternal. Millions of worlds, billions of beings, a whole galaxy watching what happened next. Closed her eyes and breathed. She had thrown the first real punch. Now she had to see who would punch back. The next 72 hours were chaos. News networks across the galaxy played the footage on repeat, the image of pushing to the floor, the sound of his voice saying the human is a test subject. The moment tore the apology in half. Commentators argued about what it meant. Some said humans were dangerous manipulators who had planned the whole thing. Others said humans were victims of galactic prejudice. Arguments broke out. Debates raged. The story dominated every channel. On Helix 7 station, things moved even faster. The Galactic Council's Ethics Committee arrived within 6 hours. A team of investigators with the authority to question anyone, examine any record, enter any room. They brought security officers. They brought lawyers. They brought the kind of serious attention that makes powerful beings very nervous. Principal was suspended immediately. She was not allowed to leave the station. She was not allowed to contact anyone outside the investigation. Her 7 eyes blinked constantly, cycling through colors of fear and disbelief. In 40 years, she had never faced consequences for anything. Now consequences had found her. The ambassador tried to leave. He loaded his family onto a private shuttle and attempted to depart for space. Council security stopped him at the docking bay. His diplomatic immunity was being reviewed. Until then, he would stay. His son was confined to the medical wing. His physical injuries were healing, but something else was wrong. He would not speak. He would not eat. He just stared at the wall with his silver eyes, replaying the moment when everything fell apart. For the first time in his life, actions had consequences. He did not know how to process this. Stayed in her dormitory room. The academy gave her a security escort, not to keep her inside but to keep others out. She had received thousands of messages. Some were supportive, some were threatening, some were just confused. She read none of them. On the 3rd day, the first real news came. 14 academy staff members were suspended pending investigation. The entire complaint system was being reviewed. The council had opened a formal inquiry into the treatment of humans at the academy. Also on the 3rd day, received a visitor. A knock came at her door. When she opened it, she saw someone unexpected. The woman was old. Her species was one of the first spacefaring civilizations in the galaxy. They had scales instead of skin, blue-green like deep ocean water. Their eyes were large and golden. They moved slowly, deliberately, like creatures who had learned that rushing led to mistakes. This wore the uniform of an academy administrator, but there was something different about her, something careful and wise. "May I come in?" she asked. Her voice was soft, gentle. Stepped aside. They entered and looked around the small room. Simple furniture, a desk with a datapad, a bed that was too large for a human, nothing personal, nothing that said anyone lived here. "My name is," the said. "I have been appointed acting principal while the investigation continues. I wanted to meet you." Stayed by the door. Her body was tense, ready. She did not know if this was a friend or another enemy. Noticed, she made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You do not trust me. Good. Trust should be earned, not assumed. That is one thing your species understands better than most." She sat down in the desk chair. Her movements were slow but graceful, like water flowing. "I have watched your recordings, all 800 hours. I have also read your academic records, your psychological evaluations, your communications with the human embassy. I wanted to understand who I was dealing with." Waited, she did not speak. Continued. "You are 17 years old. You have an IQ in the top 1% of your species. You were selected from millions of applicants for this position. You were told that the future of humanity depended on your success." She tilted her head, golden eyes catching the light. "That is an unfair burden for anyone. For a child, it is cruel." His voice was flat. "I am not a child." "No, you are not," nodded slowly. "You stopped being a child the moment you arrived here, perhaps before. Grow up quickly. They have to." She folded her scaled hands in her lap. "I want to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Not what you think I want to hear, not what is politically correct. The truth." Considered this, then she nodded. "Did you plan all of this from the beginning?" The question hung in the air. Could lie. She could say she had just reacted, that she had defended herself without thinking, that the recordings were just luck. But had asked for the truth. "No," said, "not from the beginning. When I first arrived, I really did try to follow the rules. I reported the harassment. I filed complaints. I hoped someone would help me." She moved to sit on her bed. For the first time in days, some of the tension left her body. But nobody helped. After the first month, I realized nobody was going to help, so I started recording everything. Not for revenge, for protection. I thought if things got really bad, I could show the recordings to the human embassy, prove what was happening. She looked at her hands, small hands, human hands. Then gave me that ultimatum, apologize or be expelled, and I realized something. "What?" Looked up at. I realized that no matter what I did, they were never going to let me succeed. The system was designed for me to fail. If I apologized, humans were violent animals who needed to be controlled. If I refused, humans were violent animals who could not follow rules. Either way, we lost. She stood up and walked to the window. Stars glittered in the darkness. So I stopped playing their game. I changed the rules. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she made that laughing sound again. "You are exactly what I expected, and nothing like what I expected." "What does that mean?" Rose from her chair. She moved to stand beside at the window. "Your species is young. You made first contact less than 2 years ago. The galaxy expects you to be primitive, clumsy, easy to manipulate. They see your origins and assume you are just clever animals." She gestured at the stars with one scaled hand. "But I have studied humans. I have read your history, your literature, your philosophy. Do you know what I found?" Shook her head. "I found a species that crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. A species that invented medicine to heal their enemies and weapons to destroy planets. A species that writes poetry about flowers and commits genocide over imaginary lines on maps. You are capable of incredible kindness and terrible cruelty, sometimes in the same moment. Turn to look at. You are the most contradictory species I have ever encountered, and I think that is what makes you dangerous." Met her gaze. Dangerous how? The galaxy has rules, customs, ways of doing things that have worked for millions of years. Species know their place. They follow the patterns. They do not cause problems. His golden eyes seemed to glow. Humans do not follow patterns. You adapt. You change. You refuse to accept that something is impossible just because it has never been done. That kind of thinking terrifies the established powers. She placed one scaled hand on shoulder. It was warm, almost comforting. What you did in that assembly hall was not just about exposing corruption. It was a statement, a declaration that humans will not be controlled, will not be silenced, will not play by rules designed for them to lose. Felt something tighten in her chest. For 3 months she had been alone, fighting alone. Now, for the first time, someone seemed to understand. "What happens now?" she asked. Stepped back. Her expression became businesslike. "The investigation will continue, and several others will face formal charges. The ambassador's immunity is being revoked. There will be trials." She paused. "As for you, your academic record has been cleared. You are welcome to continue your studies here. Or the Galactic Council is forming a new committee. They want to review policies on species integration, how newcomers are treated, how complaints are handled. They want to make sure this never happens again." His eyes glittered. "They have specifically requested a human perspective. They asked for you." Blinked me. "I am just a student." "You were a student," said. "Now you are the human who exposed systemic abuse at the galaxy's most prestigious academy. You forced the council to enforce its own rules. You made powerful beings face consequences." She handed a data chip. "You are famous now. Some would say infamous. Either way, you have power. The question is what you will do with it." Took the chip. It was small and light, but it felt like it contained something much heavier. "The galaxy is bigger than one school," said, "and I think it is finally ready to learn what can really do." She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. "Whatever you decide, remember this. You have already changed things. The question now is how much more you are willing to change." Then she was gone. Stood alone in her room. The data chip was warm in her hand. Outside, the stars continued their endless burning. She thought about Earth, about her family, about the billions of humans who had no idea their fate had been decided by one girl in one school on one station far from home. She thought about the future, about committees and policies and slow, careful change. And she thought about something else. Something had said, "Humans do not follow patterns." Smiled. It was not the predator smile she had shown. It was something softer, something like hope. She looked at the data chip in her hand. Then she sat down at her desk and began to read. 6 months later, stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous, a sphere floating in space, made of transparent material that showed stars in every direction. Gravity worked strangely here. Delegates sat in floating platforms arranged in expanding circles, all facing a central speaking area. Thousands of beings were present, representatives from every major species in the galaxy, leaders who controlled armies and economies, diplomats who had shaped interstellar policy for centuries. And in the center, standing at the speaker's platform, was one human girl. Had changed in 6 months. She was still short, still had the same black hair and dark eyes, but something in how she carried herself was different. She moved with confidence. She spoke with authority. She had learned that power was not about size or strength. It was about knowing your value and refusing to accept less. The council was voting today. The Integration Reform Act, a new law that would change how the galaxy treated newcomers. New species would have protections. Complaints would be taken seriously. Discrimination would have consequences. Had helped write it. She had worked with lawyers and diplomats. She had before committees. She had told her story hundreds of times. She had faced skeptics and enemies and beings who wanted her to fail. She had not failed. Now came the final vote. The council speaker was a massive being with dozens of tentacles and a body like a small moon. Its voice boomed through the chamber, translated into every language simultaneously. The Integration Reform Act has been debated. Arguments have been heard. The time has come to decide. All those in favor signal now. Platforms began to glow, green lights for yes, red lights for no. Across the chamber, colors flickered to life. Watched, her heart was beating fast, but her face showed nothing. She had learned to control her expressions, to hide her feelings, to present the face the galaxy needed to see. The light stopped changing, the speaker counted. The Integration Reform Act is passed, by a margin of 73%. Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Around her the chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates were cheering, others were shouting in anger. The delegation looked furious. They had fought hard against this law. They had lost. Stepped back from the speaker's platform. Her work here was done, at least for today. She made her way through the crowds. Beings stepped aside for her. Some nodded in respect. Others glared with hatred. She was used to both. Outside the chamber, in a quiet corridor with windows looking at distant galaxies, someone was waiting. Stood with her hands folded. Her scales had faded more in 6 months. She looked older, tired, but her golden eyes were bright with something like pride. "You did it," she said. Stood beside her. Together they looked out at the stars. "We did it," corrected. "I could not have done this alone." Made her laughing sound, perhaps, but you were the one who started it. You were the one who refused to break. She turned to face directly. "I have watched you these past months. You have grown, changed. You are not the same girl who threw that boy over her shoulder." Thought about this? No, I suppose I am not. What happened to her? She is still here, touched her chest. I still feel angry sometimes. I still want to fight. But I have learned that there are different ways to fight. Sometimes the best weapon is not your fist. It is your voice. Nodded slowly. That is wisdom, true wisdom, not the kind found in books. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, ships moved between the stars. Lights blinked on distant stations. The galaxy continued its endless spinning. Finally spoke again. "What will you do now?" Had thought about this. She had received many offers, jobs, positions, opportunities. The human who had changed galactic law was valuable. Everyone wanted her. But she had made a different decision. "I am going to finish my education," she said. "Not at the academy. There is a university on Earth that has offered me a place. I want to go home." Tilted her head. "You are giving up all this, the power, the influence." No, smiled. "I am not giving anything up. I am just choosing where to build from." She turned to face. "When I first came to the academy, I thought my job was to prove that humans were civilized, that we deserved a place in the galaxy. I thought I had to be perfect, never make mistakes, never show weakness." Her eyes were bright, not with tears, with something else, understanding. But that was wrong. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes. We have darkness and violence in our history. We have done terrible things to each other and to our planet. She looked out at the stars again. But we also have light. We create beauty. We help strangers. We reach for things we cannot see and dream of places we have never been. We are messy and complicated and sometimes wonderful. She turned back to, "The galaxy does not need us to be perfect. It needs us to be honest, to show who we really are, the good and the bad, the strength and the weakness." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and placed her scaled hand on shoulder. "You have learned something that most beings never understand," she said. "Power is not about controlling others. It is about being true to yourself, even when others want you to be something else." She stepped back. Go home, learn, grow, and when you are ready, come back. The galaxy will still be here, and it will still need people like you." Nodded, she felt something release in her chest, a weight she had carried for so long. "Thank you for everything." "Do not thank me," smiled. Her scales shifted to a warm golden color. "I did not make you who you are. Earth did, your people did, your did." She began to walk away, then paused. "One more thing. The ambassador was convicted last week, 10 years in rehabilitation. His son has been sent to a therapy facility. He may eventually recover." Did not know how to feel about this. Part of her was satisfied, justice had been done. Another part felt something strange, almost like pity. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" No, golden eyes were unreadable. "It is supposed to make you think about what victory really means, about what you want the future to look like." Then she was gone. Stood alone in the corridor. The stars burned outside the window, cold and eternal, indifferent to the small dramas of living beings. But was not indifferent. She thought about the boy who had tormented her, who had never faced consequences before, who had broken when the universe finally pushed back. She did not forgive him. Perhaps she never would, but she understood something now. He was not evil. He was a product of a system that had taught him he was better than others, that his actions did not matter, that he could hurt without being hurt. That system was changing now, because of her, because of one human girl who had refused to accept the rules. Maybe that was enough, or maybe it was just the beginning. Turned away from the window, she had a shuttle to catch. Earth was waiting. She walked through the corridors of the council station, past delegates and diplomats, past guards and servants, past beings who had never seen a human before and beings who knew exactly who she was. None of them stopped her, none of them challenged her. She had earned her place here. But she was not staying, not yet. She had learned something important in the past 6 months. The galaxy was big, bigger than she had ever imagined, full of wonders and horrors and everything in between. And humans had only just arrived. They had made first contact less than 2 years ago. They were bobbies on the galactic stage, newcomers, outsiders. But they were also survivors, fighters. They had crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. They had faced extinction and plagues and ice ages and wars. They had split the atom and walked on their moon and sent their voices into the void. Now they were here, in the galaxy, among the stars. And they were just getting started. Reached the docking bay. Her shuttle was waiting, a small ship that would carry her to the nearest jump gate, then home. She paused at the airlock. She looked back at the station one last time. Somewhere out there, beings were talking about her, making plans, building futures. The Integration Reform Act would change things, slowly, imperfectly, but it would change things. She had done that. A 17-year-old girl from a test subject, an animal that was supposed to fail. She had changed the galaxy. Smiled, it was a real smile this time, not a weapon, not a mask, just a girl who had found her place in the universe. She stepped onto the shuttle. The airlock closed behind her. Outside, the stars were waiting. And somewhere billions of light years away, a small blue planet spun around its yellow sun. A home. Was going back. But she would return. After all, she was human. And humans never gave up. The shuttle launched. Engines roared, stars blurred into lines of light. And Daughter of Earth flew toward her future. Whatever came next, she would be ready. She was a survivor. She was human. And she was only getting started.